question we're asked regularly is, what if I accidentally anneal the same case twice? Is that going to ruin the case? The short answer to that is no. It'll actually make no difference at all. I'm going to demonstrate today what actually happens and then explain why. It's quite interesting. First up, we'll start with sacrificing a case. Today we're doing Norma 223 cases, so to get the correct Aztec code, we'll firstly select Aztec. We'll then select Analyze, and then the correct code for 223 is 0302.003A. And now we're good to go. We're now generating the correct code for that case. And it's 0136. We'll take that case out and throw it away. Now we're going to start a journey for one particular case. We've already got that case on the Microvicus hardness testing machine, and we'll show what the hardness is of this unannealed case. So on the diamond we're going to measure the 4 diagonal points. And it shows that this is 136.9 on the Vickers scale. Now I'll explain what that hardness means shortly, but that is harder than what we're wanting. So we're now going to take that case and anneal it on setting 136. We're ready to go. And that case is now annealed. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to cool this case with a wet rag. That makes absolutely no difference to the effect of the annealing. It just makes it so I don't burn my fingers when I'm handling the case. Now we will test the hardness of that case. It's going to look a little bit darker under the microscope because it's gone dark, but there's the old diamond right there. I'll just spin it around a little bit. Now we'll create another diamond. Now, for the purposes of making this video reasonably brief, we're going to edit this bit and come back once the hardness testing is done. It takes about a minute or so. Okay, so let's check and see what hardness we got. First we'll focus onto the points. 98.5, which is exactly what we're looking for. Now, we'll anneal exactly the same case again on exactly the same setting. Back onto 136. We're annealing. Cool it down again. And put it back on the Vickers. Right, back soon. Okay, we're back again. Let's check the hardness of the second time annealing on the same setting. Here's our new diamond. So let's take the points there. 98.9. There is just no change at all. Now let's talk about why that happens. And in order to do that, I want to talk about the concept of stored energy. Now, there's a lot of things a metallurgist will tell you that happen that are involved with that, including grain size, metallic dislocation, and all sorts of arcane terms. To keep the science simple, we're just going to talk about it in terms of stored energy. Easiest way to do that is with a glass of water. Now, on the scale, we've got a gradient of hardness on the Vickers scale. At 65, you're basically talking about dead soft brass. It's got no resilience left in it at all. The next level up, or it's at the top of it, we have 200, which is spring hard. That's about as hard as brass gets. In between, 150 is pretty hard, and just under 100 is what we believe is the ideal hardness for brass. The reason for that, it's all to do with the resilience of the brass and springback. Up here, you have a substantial amount of springback. You could get out of a normal reloading die 2 or 3 thou of springback. Down here, you have 0 spring back. In fact, it's virtually dead brass, it's dead soft. Here at 100, you have the tiniest little bit of resilience still left in the brass, and there's probably half a thou spring back if you're doing your shoulder bumping. We believe that is the ideal repeatable hardness. Now, what happens when we anneal, we release some of that energy. Here, I've got the glass full up to around about 130 where the brass started when we first began this demonstration. When we anneal, we effectively release some of that hardness. And there, I've tipped it down, it's gone down to 100. Now, when we anneal the second time, we applied exactly the same amount of energy, so no more hardness was released. It stayed the same. If we tipped the case further, then it would have got softer because we annealed a little bit more. But because we annealed on exactly the same setting, nothing changed. Now let's talk about what it takes to add that hardness. Let's get our case now and harden it up. Now, for the purposes of this exercise, firstly, while we're talking, I'll just put a bit of lube on the case because we don't want to gall it. The die that we're using here is an what I would call an old school aggressive die. It's a neck die only, and what it's doing when on the upstroke, when we take the case into the die, we're going to compress the neck down tighter than it really needs to be. On the downstroke, it's going to come over an expanding ball, and that's going to take the inside diameter out to where it needs to be to seat a bullet. Now, both of those processes are working the brass. When it goes in, it works it, and when it comes out, it works it again. Bullet seating also works the brass again, so all three of those functions are work hardening the brass. Effectively, what they're doing is storing energy in that brass. Another point, what about shooting the case? Does shooting actually make much difference? Our tests have shown it makes very little difference at all. It adds a little bit to the hardness, but not much at all. So where does that energy come from? It actually comes from you. When you raise the case up into the die, the energy that you're using with your arm, a part of that is stored in the brass. When you take it back down again over the expander ball, that energy is stored in the brass as well. Now let's look at how hard that case has got, and to demonstrate what we've done, we have added hardness to the glass. It's now going to be up around there with our stored energy. So let's have a look at how hard the case is now. The case is getting darker, obviously. Okay, let's see just how much hardness or stored energy was added to that case neck by one pass through a sizing die. Now, the diameter is getting a little harder to see there, but that is one point, that's the next point, that's the next point, and that's the last point. We've gone up to just under 130, so there is where we've added our hardness to the case. Now, what we're going to do this time, while we're talking instantly, I'll just give that a bit of a polish so that it's a little bit easier to see under the microscope. What we're going to do this time, instead of annealing it at the correct setting of 136, we're going to under anneal it a little bit. Now that's going to effectively remove a bit less stored energy, and so it won't be quite soft enough. So we'll change our setting from 136 to a new setting of, let's go 1, 3, 2. Let's see what happens with that. Right, back onto the hardness testing. That's made the case, the polishing has made the case a little bit brighter under the microscope. Check and see what happens there. Back in a minute. Okay, so let's check the results of slightly under annealing. There's our diamond. And we've got 124. So we haven't really annealed much at all from the last setting. Effectively, what we've done is we've only released about that much. Right, so we need to go back and anneal thoroughly in order to get the correct result. Let's do that now. So we're now going to go back, correct the annealing setting, we'll select run again, but new, and we'll go back to the correct setting of 6. And we're good to go. We're annealing again. Cool it off. Onto the hardness tester. And we'll see what that gives. Okay, so let's see the results of taking it back to the correct annealing program. There's our diamond. $97.5. Again, perfect. So what we've done is we've freed up that last bit of energy, and it's taken us down, my pouring needs to be a bit more accurate, to exactly the right hardness. In other words, we've released the correct amount of stored energy. So there you have it, stored energy. Cheers.